One of the main projects I'm involved in, and I suppose it's quite dear to my heart, is the Soil pH project. We've been scooting around the countryside here, and we even did some sampling over the back there. And we're sampling at new sites, and we're sampling at old sites to see, one, what the status of soil acidification is over at the moment around the area, and two, what's happened over time, how bad it's got or how good it's got. Unfortunately, we found a few nasty things. About roughly between 75 and 80% of new sites, we found a pH of under 5.5 in the top 0 to 10 centimetres. So when your pH gets below 5.5 in the top 0 to 10 centimetres, it starts impacting upon your plant's ability to access nutrients. The two biggies being nitrogen and phosphorus. Also too, when it gets to that level in the top section of the soil profile, you can also get down into the soil profile, the deeper sections, and start causing you a problem with acidification there. When it's only in the top, the plants can, have a bit of a go, get the roots down into the more alkaline sections and, do the job. But once it gets down to the subsurface, things are looking pretty shabby. Now Western Australia, they're pretty advanced compared to us over there. They've got terrible herbicide resistance. They've got terrible subsoil acidification. They've got terrible salinity. And what they're trying to do at the moment is they're trying to figure out how they can actually rectify the problem in the deep sections of the soil. Cost them an absolute mozza. Just to give you a bit of idea what they recommend, this is out of the Incitec Pivot Agronomy Advantage Manual. They say for every tonne of wheat you take out, to maintain your pH, not rectify it, just to maintain it where it is, they say 9 kilos of lime. It's not too bad. For every 100 grams of urea, for example, 83 kilos of lime though. And that's per hectare. And that's just to maintain your pH. It's a bit of a biggie. GRDC have been quite worried about the whole situation, and that's why they're funding this project for us to nip around and see what the whole go is. And they're also starting to fund a subsurface acidification project down in Wagga, because they've got soil acidification worse than us. A lot of the historic
sites... Can you just say that a little bit slower there, about the urea?
Yep. So what they're saying here is 83 kilos of lime to neutralise 100 kilos of urea.
That's top dressing urea.
Yeah.
That's what you apply, what you put on.
So just to sort of maintain your pH. So if you've got a pH of 5.5 and you put on 83 kilos of urea, for example. No, sorry, 100 kilos of urea, you're going to need 83 kilos of lime to maintain it.
Okay.
What we found in a lot of the historic sites we visited, they've been getting worse as well. We're talking about 60 to 70% of the historic sites are showing further acidification. So we're just seeing acidification over time, and we're seeing acidification in a lot of people's paddocks, which is a bit nasty. It's pretty easy though. I'm not saying it's all doom and gloom, because what we found in a lot of the areas we've been sampling is there's a fair bit of variation across a paddock. It might be 5.5 there, it might be 6 over there, it might be 4.7 over there. We've done a bit of sampling over here on the Davis's place very kindly. There's 4.7 over there, and that paddock over by the pine tree over there. Paddock over the road though, totally different soil type altogether. It wasn't so bad. And that's where you've got your lime strips over there. I think I'll forward you all the information too, Doing, I reckon. But it doesn't hurt just to know what the pH is in your paddock. I'm not saying go out there and spend a fortune straight up. Simple little cheap testing kits. This one you buy online for $15. You can sit in the front of the cab in up to 7 years without sort of wasting away. Doesn't need batteries or anything. When you're out checking for bugs in the paddock or whatever it is, it doesn't hurt to get a little sample, see what the pH is, just to identify if you do have an issue. If you think, well, that pat's looking a bit shabby, I'll nip over there and have a look over there as well too. Get a bit of an idea what's happening in your paddock. Online on the Central West Farming Systems website, there's a really little simple how to do it guide, sampling methodology and rates of lime to apply if you do have a bad soil pH. Saying that, if you have identified by a simple testing kit that you're starting to get a bit acidic, you're probably best to A, speak to an agronomist and get your area sampled properly and get it sent off for proper chemical analysis. Or Central West Farming Systems, towards the start of next year, we're looking to offer a similar service for members, soil sampling and soil analysis at a discounted rate. The benefit of that is, a lot of people go for the old rule of thumb. You might say, what, 2.5 tonne per hectare, once every 10 years or something like that. You might find it could be a bit too much. If you put too much lime on, that can impact upon your nutrient availability as well too. So you need to identify via the soil testing what your estimated cation exchange capacity is. And I shall refer to that as ECEC from now on. I can't say it again, it's tongue twister. Once you've identified what the ECEC is, then you can put on targeted rates of lime to address the issue, and that can save you a bit of a quid. But anyway, that's enough of me carrying on.
Nick, on most of the soil types here, is there a lot of variation? Is some of the pH improving at depth or declining at depth? Is there much variation?
What we've noticed in many situations is where the subsurface acidification is actually getting worse, yes. The whole situation is getting worse. And the two biggies are really product removal, so taking grain away or wool away. It's taking away the molecules within the soil which maintain an alkaline environment, and nitrogen application. Now a lot of blokes down here are getting into peas and lupins and all those sorts of things, which are a really good thing for soil health, but they do put nitrogen into the soil, which is a good thing. But the bugs in the soil transform it from nitrites to nitrates. And in that process it releases hydrogen atoms in the soil, and that causes your acidification.
I know in some areas in Western Australia, actually pH is you might be 4.5 on the surface,
yep,
and you can fix that,
yep,
but it's actually improving at depth, so it's 5.5 or 6 at depth, whereas some other soil types obviously go the other way, and they're the ones that we're having trouble fixing.
So what happens is when it's if you rectify it at depth before it gets at height in the 0 to 10 section, it'll actually improve it, because as the water's washing the lime through the profile, it'll remediate the problem down the bottom. So if you fix it up the top, it'll save you a bucket load of quid. That's the way forward.
So what about the sulphate of ammonia as an alternative? Does that help you, or?
Sulphate as a method of fertiliser? Let's have a look at what the data says. No, it's actually worse than urea. 113 kilograms of lime to neutralise 100 kilograms of sulphate of ammonia. DAP is probably one of the better ones. So at the time of sowing, instead of putting MAP on, if you've got a potential for acidic soils, DAP's potentially a better option.
Better off using none.
That's it. Well, you'd save yourself a quid.
You've got to get down the silo first.
Yep.
She's all in there and you can't get it.
We were having a yarn with one of the blokes over at Alectown there, and we were talking about lime, and he's in a bit of a liming program at the moment on his property. And he says it's not too bad for him the way he looks at it. He spends about 150,000 a year on fertiliser. He spends 10 to 15 grand a year on lime. And if he doesn't put the lime in, he can't get his lucerne to grow. So that's the reason why he's into it. It's not that he really wants to spend the money, but he just wants to feed his sheep lucerne.
The other thing you get is as you increase your lime, you increase your pH, you actually get better availability of phosphorus. So
that's exactly
it.
Sometimes
it's a no in the West, when you get to drought years, what used to happen is you get a bloody drought year, you come along and you cut your lime out of the budget,
yep,
whereas now we do exactly the opposite. We actually drop our phosphorus back and keep our lime program there for the same reason.
That's exactly it. Phosphorus is a strange beastie within the soil. We were talking before the other day about phosphorus buffering index. And obviously, what do they say? I think it's 30% of phosphorus applied to your soil type may become unavailable due to the chemical reactions that's occurring within the soil. And one of those chemical reactions is pH. So keep your pH right, you keep your nutrients available to your plants, and yeah, you can actually save yourself a bit of quid. But we've yet to quantify that, and fingers crossed over the next year we should be able to have some hard data based upon a farmer's own trial on farm about how much money he's actually saving via having lime within the paddock. He's run out 3 test strips, 3 different rates of lime all the way across the paddock. This is one of the things we're trying to have a look down here at Davis's over there and actually figure out the economic value of it. Anyway, that's enough for me.